This video will explain how to play pull-offs. There will be 3 examples total, and if you came to this video from the ebook put out for the free beginners course, you will have a link under each example saying something like click here for a video demonstration, and those links will either take you to the beginning of this video or to the beginning of the other 2 exercises. Now, a pull-off is basically the opposite of a hammer-on. If you have not learned what a hammer-on is, please click on the annotation up now on YouTube so you are taken to that hammer-on example video. Now, looking at our first example, we have 3, then 0, and we have the curved line going from the 3 to 0. So this is still the slur mark that you learned about on the hammer-on video. So again, we pick the first note, but not the next one. So pull-off is telling you to literally pull off from the string to produce the next note. So what we do to start this example is we pick the 3rd fret on the high E, and then we're literally pulling off. Now I'm exaggerating my motion a bit right now just so you can see what I'm doing. What happens with a lot of beginners when they try and do a pull off is they do this. They just let go. Now because of all the distortion I have on, it's very easy for that next note to continue to ring out. But if I do it without distortion, you hear how quiet that next note is? Whoop. If I do it on multiple frets, like this, the next couple notes after the picked one keeps getting quieter and quieter. The reason why is because you're just letting go of the string, so the vibration of the string is less and less and less. So if you do it properly, if you do a pull-off properly, so I'm not even going to pick that first note, I'm just going to do the pull-off. You're basically plucking the string with your finger as you come off of it. So, again, we pick the 3 and we pull off to the open string. And we do that again to complete bar 1. Bar 2, pick 3, pull off to 0. Pick 3, pull off to 0. Now it is more challenging to not hit the E string as you go, which is what will happen for a lot of beginners, and that's okay, because the idea right now is to just get used to the motion. The more you do it, the more subtle of a motion you will be able to make, and you won't have any extra strings ringing out the better that you get. So you will learn how to make a subtle movement there. So back to our example. So yes, the first bar, you pick 3, pull to 0 on the high E string. Do it again. Second bar, we go to the B string. Pick 3, pull up to 0. Pick 3, pull to 0. And then the 3rd bar is the same as the first. 4th bar is the same as the 2nd. So the whole exercise is... Now, another thing to keep in mind when doing pull-offs, what a lot of people end up doing is rotating the wrist in order to make it happen. Yes, you are able to make a pull-off sound this way, but look at it this way. If you're doing something like this, you have to go so far back to the fretboard in order to continue to do the pull-off. If you even want to do something like this, and you keep using your wrist, you're never going to get fast that way because you're wasting all kinds of movement the pull-off motion needs to come from the finger and only the finger. The wrist should never turn. It should never be twisting. It's all in the finger. So this way you can do stuff like this. You can do stuff like that quickly because it's all in the fingers and you're not using your wrists to move your fingers away from the guitar. You want your fingers as close to the guitar as possible at all times. Just like the first hammer-on example, you can also practice this example with all 4 fingers. So practice it with the index finger, with the middle, ring finger, and your pinky. Example 2 will not have any open strings. So what we're going to do is start by picking fret 7 on the high E, and we're going to pull off to 5 on the same string. So it's very important for this, whatever you're going to pull off to needs to be down in advance. So this means if you're going to be pulling off from 7 to 5, you need that 5 held down already. What happens if you don't have it down well, that's just creating a funny sound with all that distortion going on, but basically you're not getting a real pull off when you do it that way. It's kind of like you're doing a hammer-on from nothing is what you're trying to do. You hear how weak that sounds too? That's why you need that to make that plucking motion happen, and you're pulling straight off to that note. It's the same idea as when we pulled off from the 3 to the 0. It's just now instead of pulling off to a 0, we're holding the 5. You didn't have to hold anything when you pulled off to 0 because there's nothing to be held for an open string. So that note was already primed and ready to go. So if you're going to pull off to another fret, you need that one primed and ready to go. So that's why I'm saying to have the 7 and 5 down at the same time in order to make the pull off happen. So we pick the 7, holding it with the ring finger, pull off to the 5, which you're already holding down with your index finger, and we repeat that. Bar 2, we're going to pick the 6 with our and hold it with the middle finger while we still already have the index holding the 5 on the same string. So we pick 6, pull off to 5, repeat that. Now we're going to repeat the process. Bar 3 is the same as bar 1. And then bar 4 is the same as bar 2. Here is the whole exercise. Now some of you might want to bar or lay your index finger across both the E and the B string and do this. But notice when I do that, compared to this, barring it makes it messier. When you move your finger back and forth, it sounds cleaner and more precise. Sometimes you might want to have a messier sound. For stuff like that, but usually most people are going to want a nice and clean separation of the notes. So it is important to move your index finger from string to string through this exercise and not just leave it on both. Another good reason, beyond sounding cleaner, is I've noticed when people just leave their finger down like this, they create a very lazy hand, and you are doing yourself a disservice by getting in the habit of just letting your fingers stay put on multiple strings like this instead of getting them to jump back and forth. So it may be more difficult to move your finger back and forth at first, but it will pay off big time in the long run and make guitar playing way easier for you. The third pull-off example will have 2 pull-offs in a row, just like we did with the hammer-on example. So looking at this tablature of the last pull-off exercise for the video, you'll see an 8-7-5 to begin with, and the slur mark is going across the 8, 7, and 5. So we pick the 8th fret, but we do not pick the 7 or 5. We're going to pull off to 7 and pull off to 5 right away. So this means you're going to have 3 frets held down first before you pick anything. So this example is saying to pick the 8, pull off to 7, pull off to 5. So you see I've got all 3 fingers down. Now this is where it gets very tricky for most people, because you have to have finger independence in order to make this work. What I mean by that is only one finger is supposed to move at a time. What a lot of people end up doing when they try something like this to begin with is they move both fingers at the same time, and to do something like this, because you're so used to having your fingers move as a unit, and that's natural. So, you know, it's not a bad thing. It's something that will get easier to control. But that's just the way we are naturally built. We're not used to moving fingers independent of each other. We're used to moving them as a unit. So this will be challenging for most new players. And that's okay. You will get better at it. It just takes practice. So the idea is only your pinky moves after you pick the first note. So you pick, only the pinky move. And then your ring finger pulls off. What some of you may need to do is just work on going like this. Just pick the 8, pull off the 7. This way you get used to the pinky moving and the ring finger staying still. So, to go through our example, we start by having all 3 fingers down on the 5, 7, and 8. So index finger on 5, ring on 7, pinky on 8. We pick the 8th fret, pull off to 7, pull off to 5. We repeat the process by putting all 3 fingers back where they were. Pick, pull, pull. Notice the index finger stays down the whole time. That guy should stay put until now. Going to the B string, we move the index finger down, and then we place the pinky on 8, middle finger on 6, and then we pick the 8th fret, pull off to 6, pull off to 5. Repeat the process. Then we go to bar number 3, which is the same as the first bar. Bar 4 is the same as the second. Here is the whole example. At this time, I'd like to invite you to take it slow when learning these exercises. Pull-offs prove to be very challenging for most new players. So some key things to keep in mind is, remember, you're pulling off during a pull-off. You're literally plucking the string as you pull off from one note to the next. You don't want to perform a let go of. It's not a let go of. And whenever you are pulling off from one fret to the next, make sure you have what you're going to pull off to down in advance. Like we did earlier, if you're going to pick the 7 and pull off to the 5, you need to have that 5th fret down before you pick the 7, so this way the 5 is ready to be heard after you have pulled off to the 7. This will result in better sounding notes and more accurate and faster playing. So please take your time with one example and feel comfortable with it before moving on to the next one and then the next. These examples are set up from being fairly easy to more intermediate to an advanced thing, so the difficulty does increase with each exercise. If you have any questions with this video or anything pertaining to music, please send me an email. I'll be more than happy to get back to you, and thank you for watching.